Hi, this is Julie Murphy. I'm with Arizona Farm Bureau, and it's Friday. It's 10 o'clock. So it's talk to a farmer, talk to a rancher, talk to an Aggie stakeholder Friday, and that's what we're doing today. Our guest today is Ashley Grabb. Ashley, welcome, and thank you for hanging out with us. Yeah. This is the sixth of an ongoing series of us learning about the Arizona Department of Ag. And I have had a ball.
That's great.
Yes.
I hope you have.
I have had a ball. The State Department is a lot more fascinating and interesting than most people would think, and most people give it credit for. And I've always loved the people at Arizona Department of Ag. But getting to know exactly what the different divisions do has been very important, and for me personally, it's been rewarding. So today we've got someone else that we're going to interview, and you have kind of an interesting role. We'll get into that. But for those that are joining us live, if you have comments or questions, certainly please put them in the comments section, and we'll try to get to them. If not, no worries. Just hang out with us for as long as you can. We'll go from there. And then for those of you that view this later, just know that we're going to keep it on Instagram, and we're also going to upload it to YouTube and then share it on Arizona Farm Bureau or at azfb.org. Well, let's get started, Ashley.
Alrighty, let's do it.
Welcome,
Thank you.
Illinois young woman. This is awesome. And how long have you been in Arizona now?
9 years.
9 years.
Almost 9 years. I think I hit my 9-year mark this year.
But you grew up on an Illinois farm and all that fun stuff. We'll get into that a little bit.
Yes.
But tell me about you, and then what you do for Arizona Farm Bureau or Arizona Department of Ag.
We partner with the Farm Bureau.
You partner with us. So.
Well, I am the director of the Agriculture and Food Systems Support Division, which is the only non-regulatory arm of the department.
Okay.
Yes. So prior it was called ACT, which I think was Agriculture and Consulting Training, I think is correct. But we used to try to keep people from getting tickets was the best way to say it. So get them in compliance so they don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
And we still do that with a couple of programs, but we have really expanded into more of food systems work. And I think that is a really interesting aspect, and I'm excited to talk about that today.
Yes. Awesome.
Yes.
Well, and I just mentioned it briefly at the very beginning. So you're an Illinois farm girl. So tell us that background.
Yeah. So I grew up on a corn and soybean farm in central Illinois, kind of where central bleeds into south.
Okay.
My family I hope they don't watch this. They have southern twangs.
I love it.
I somehow managed to not get that one. But I grew up on my grandparents' farm. I think we're 6 generations in now, so it's been passed down for quite some time.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell the family congratulations.
Yes, I will. It's been a really interesting journey. On the other side of that, my grandpa was also a mechanic, and he owned a farm implement business. So when I wasn't in the actual field, I was playing on combines and learning to drive tractors. And
awesome.
I think I've been driving tractors since I was 3.
You probably could even fix them.
I don't know about that. I would break it.
I love it.
What else? We had a very large garden, and we would rely off that in the summers. We canned. We would buy shares of cows and pigs from our neighbors. So I very much grew up with that was my norm.
Yeah.
I did not know any better. When I went to college, I realized that I had what I at the time thought was weird. Now I very much love the way I was raised, but I was going to school with people from St. Louis, Chicago. I'm like, wow, you don't know where food comes from. So that kind of lit a fire in me of trying to figure out how the access to food, the access to nutrition, the access to agriculture is important in just our cultural existence. Yeah. And when you have that disconnect, you don't have the passion for food that maybe you should.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful, Ashley.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing that strikes me, though, you guys raised your own garden in the summer, obviously, but you also grew up on a large, very traditional farm.
Corn
American
and soybeans.
Farm. Yep. And then in the meantime, you go to college, and then I don't know if it was your first job, but one of your jobs is managed a beginner farmer program in Colorado. So talk about that.
I can talk about kind of how I got here, if that helps, because it's kind of I always say it dodge and weaves a little bit in and out of agriculture. So I got my undergrad in psychology and sociology.
Oh, wow.
But I always focused on the access to food.
Okay.
So any studies or research I did, anything I wrote was always about food. And then my master's is in social work. I have a year of like general practice, so I have some counseling skills. And then the second year was really focused on policy and food policy and understanding agriculture policy. I had to study the Farm Bill, all the aspects of that.
Awesome.
It was a very entrepreneur program, which was interesting. There were only 11 of us in the program. And because of that, I had a lot of freedom. It was really great. And then part of the degree was to go get hands-on experience. So I decided I'm getting out of here. I don't want to be in Illinois anymore. I'm sick of the snow. And then I moved to Colorado. So I was like, more snow.
More snow.
It's where I got my internship, and I ended up working on, it was a farm that had a public-private partnership with a school.
Okay.
Outside of Boulder within the county. And we grew vegetables, but we also grew farmers. So we tried to train farmers up to the point of getting them into markets.
So cool.
It was very interesting. We'd partner with extension agents. We'd partner with anyone that we could really get out to the farm to train people. And then I was kind of, I guess, a Jill of all trades. So I'd fill in with their business plans. How do you market? What are the connections?
So, and to pause just for a second, most of these farmers obviously were going to end up being retail or direct market farmers, not necessarily in the vein of your family's farms in Illinois. Okay.
Yes. More produce focused.
Okay.
Yes. And then the other part of that, because we were on school land, we partnered with Boulder Valley School District. So we would have kids out, and that really expanded my interest in connecting children to agriculture. So we would have them come out and harvest carrots and learn about the nutrition of carrots and how they're good for your eyes. And so it was a really great experience because I got to see the business aspect, but also how do you get children passionate about food.
Right.
I remember it broke my heart because a kid comes running off the bus, and he was like, "Where's the salsa tree?" And I was like, "Oh, we got a lot of work to do."
Seriously?
Yeah.
Said salsa.
Salsa
God
tree.
bless him.
Yeah. So that, let's see what happened after that. In that role, we were selling to a small grocery store in North Boulder, and I built a good relationship with them. They actually ended up investing with their foundation some infrastructure for us, which is, if anyone is a small farmer, you know, it's really hard. It's really expensive to get started. So it was awesome that they did that. And over time, they ended up having a job available for their foundation. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I think I'm ready to try something different. Right. So little did I know that they had a private investor. And within 4 years, I opened, I think, around 30 grocery stores across the country.
Really?
In my mid-20s, and I was traveling 3 weeks out of every month. I was not home, but I got to know, I guess, just issues people were facing across the country, and a lot around agriculture and value-added products. I would connect our buyers with local people. They called me a forager, which was a cool, it was a cool thing.
Cool word.
Yes, but also really difficult, actually, to try to get small businesses on your shelves if they don't have the in-between piece of how do you transport the food? How do you process the food? All of those things.
Even the marketing and packaging, right?
Yes, and the cost of all of that.
Wow.
It was great. I loved it. I have lifelong friends from that experience, but I got burnt out with the travel and decided I wanted to try something new. So I moved here.
Okay.
And I've been here for 9 years, like we said. And when I moved here, I started working at ASU on a research study at RO1. If anyone's in the research world, it's quite a big study. And we looked at fruit and vegetable consumption in kids across the state of Arizona. So we work with 36 schools. And one of the pieces that we looked at was salad bars and how salad bars impact if they're eating more. I didn't go all the way through because COVID hit and a lot of things happened. But the two big things that were takeaways for me, if you provide them with dressings or like tahine, they eat more vegetables, which was really interesting.
And stick the dressing out there for the kids.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And then they don't have enough time to eat. So they're picking things up like a pizza because that's easier to eat than a salad.
Oh, sure. So it's not really their fault all the
No,
time.
it's not always, it's kind of the system. And I guess that's where my background has really been an interesting piece of looking
Okay.
at how does the system impact our experience with food. And I did for 2 years. I started a PhD program there in nutrition. It was fun. It wasn't for me. Long term, I really am I'm a people person, and I want to be out there doing the thing and not behind a computer writing and researching. The importance of that, I totally understand, but it was not for me.
It wasn't your style.
Yes.
So, but for the degree of research that you did while you were at ASU, even pre the PhD, besides the fact that you learned kids are in a rush, so they have to pick something that they can grab, it's not really anything. How are Arizona kids doing with eating vegetables, or did you get to track it long enough to be able to?
I'm trying to think. So the method that we did was actually we took a picture of their food before and after they ate. So we had physical photos and the weights, so we would weigh what they were eating. And I think the time played into it. So I don't want to say they're not eating their vegetables.
Okay.
I do know generally in Arizona, adults and children are not meeting the requirements for fruit and vegetable consumption. But again, I think there's systematic things that play into that. So I don't want to say they're not eating their vegetables because I don't know if that's fair to say.
Well, we cite CDC, and sometimes people poo-poo that, but the majority of Americans are not eating the expected requirement of their fruits and vegetables that they should.
I think only 17% of people in Maricopa County are eating their fruit vegetable requirements. I mean, I'm also guilty of that myself.
I know.
I got some room to grow.
I got some room to grow too.
Yes.
Well, that's so fascinating. So, moving now to present day.
Yeah.
Discuss more of what you do on behalf of the Arizona Department of Agriculture.
I'm gonna have to look at my notes here.
And you've only been in this position for 6 months.
Yes.
So, but the world is your oyster. It sounds like because of some of the reorg and redirection and revisioning, repurposing things, maybe some of the opportunities here, and you can do a cheat sheet with your notes. I give you full permission.
Appreciate it.
Loosey-goosey here. And,
well, I want to read the definition of what food systems is, because I think that will clear up some things.
Okay.
So food systems comprise all the people, institutions, places, and activities that play a part in growing, processing, transporting, selling, and marketing, and ultimately eating food.
Okay.
Food systems influence diets by determining what kinds of foods are produced, which foods are accessible both physically and economically, and people's food preferences. They are also critical for ensuring food and nutrition security and people's livelihoods. So more or less, I'm looking at the entire system of food in this role. So I think that if you really look at it in a picture, it's an onion. So agriculture is the centerpiece of the onion. And then there's the transportation, there's the processing, all the way out to the last realm is the people eating the food. And do they have access to the food? Something I didn't mention, I guess, I had a single parent, and it was hard growing up. I did have my grandparents with that benefit, thankfully, but we utilized SNAP benefits and WIC benefits. Sure. And if we had not had access to those, I'm not really sure we would have eaten sometimes.
Oh, bless you.
So I think.
So you know what so can I ask you, do you know what it is to be hungry?
Oh yeah. Yes. Yes, definitely. So, and I'm very open book about that. I think a lot of people have a shame around that, but my mom was trying her best, and she ended up going back to our local community college, got a very good job. And it's funny, I have a sister that's 10 years younger than me, and I'm always like, we had two totally different mothers. Like, I don't know who your mom is because she was not mine. Yeah, but my mom, she just kind of pushed me to make sure that this is your experience. Try to make it better for other people. And my grandma was the same way. And that drives me with agriculture too. And that's my intersection, is access to food is so important for everyone.
Yeah.
So I see my job is getting food in the hands of the people, all of the people, in any way that we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you know what it feels like to be hungry, maybe go to bed hungry, you're going to be way more attuned to what we need to do to make this work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's.
So, what are some of the things then that are rolling out, knowing that this is now the Agriculture and Food System Support Division? No regulatory requirements to it.
Yeah,
Kind of cool.
For now, I hope. Well, right now, we have air quality, which is Rusty. So that's looking at PM10 and making sure, I hope everyone knows what that means. If not, go to our website.
Most of our Aggies know that, but that's just dust management, dust control. A lot of best management practices that allow farmers different strategies. Most of what the farmers have actually come up with, in many instances, even when they plow, early in the morning when there's dew, it's a lot less dusty than other things. So there's a lot of best management practices in dust control. That's Rusty's wheelhouse, right?
And then Roberto is pesticide and worker safety.
Okay.
And those are the two compliance programs. And then we have a whole grants team. So that's Lisa, Ashley E. Ashley E and Ashley G sound exactly the same, so that's a lot of fun.
Oh, how fun.
And then Pamela and Marty, and they oversee, there's a lot of acronyms, so Specialty Crop Block Program, LOFAP, so Livestock Fire and Flood, I can't remember, sorry Marty. Section 6, and Section 6 is about invasive species, and then Livestock and Crop Conservation Grant Program.
Wow. So all of the grant programs you're in charge of. Your team.
My team is, yes. My wonderful team manages those. And part of what we're doing is trying to get more grants. In the light of current situations, we don't know what's going to happen with that. The other two projects that we have, we're partnered with Local First with the Southwest Regional Food Business Center. And that is providing support to local and regional farm and food businesses to try to support them in growing. That is Chantel that oversees that. She's our Food Systems Resiliency Coordinator, which is also one of the big changes that Paul implemented. And
which means for listeners.
Yes, the ensuring, I guess, food systems resiliency.
Okay.
And looking at many different aspects of that. And it kind of falls with everything that we hope to be doing in the future. So Arizona Grown is relaunching. I'm going to put a plug in. We're currently, we're having a survey, kind of what you said with the PM10. It's not our role to establish what Arizona Grown rules are. That should be our community, our farmers, our producers, our ranchers. So we have a survey going right now. It is bit.ly/Arizona Grown survey. That will be live until, I think, next Friday, next Saturday. And we will be taking all the feedback from that to actually establish what are the values of this program within our state? What are the parameters of it? How would you like us to manage it? Because I don't feel that is our role to do.
Are you trying to get the feedback as much from whether it's somebody like your onion, going back to your onion, maybe mid-onion layer, maybe in transportation or logistics, but you also probably want to hear from the farmers? Send me the link.
Okay, I will.
And I'll send it out.
Yeah, that would be great.
Aggie membership.
And it's really everyone, even the consumers.
Okay.
We've asked for input on that as well. So
I guess what?
Anyone that eats.
Yeah, I can send it to our entire. We have a membership of 30,000, but those that have opted in, I think it's close to 20,000. Opted into our emails is what we could send it to.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great.
So consumers and farmers, everybody in the
food world.
System onion.
Yes.
I'm going to keep
the onion. Yes,
your
I love it. Yeah, so I think right now, because I am new, we're just trying to establish some of those programs and what those programs look like.
Right.
In the future, I'm hoping, I've been involved with Farm to School in the state. Yes. I hope that we can find ways to collaborate there, the Arizona Food Systems Network as well as Farm Bureau. Like, what can we do within the boundaries that we can exist within with being a state entity? And I think just being there, being a phone call away for people. Well, I know we'll get to this in one of the questions, so I'll hold off on giving that story until I get further down.
Well, and on that, I'm so fascinated by how this has been kind of restructured, reset, so it's kind of fun. So I'm kind of going off script slightly, but Are you working with chefs at all, especially some of the chefs that are like Charlene Badman with F&B, who's very passionate? She has the same level of passion as you do. Make sure the
Blue Watermelon Project.
Yes. Okay, so you know
we
that.
have not. I haven't reached out to them yet, and
Okay.
I did miss my past job. I worked for the county with a lot of farmer advocacy,
Sure.
Connecting farmers with being able to sell double up programs,
Perfect.
SNAP, those kind of things. So I was connected with Blue Watermelon there. We are trying to figure out through Arizona Grown what that would look like, and maybe trying to step into supporting value chain coordination is what we call it.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily us doing procurement, but you have 30 or 300 packages of buns and someone else has some burgers. How do we get that into the right hands to make sure that food doesn't go to waste?
Yeah.
And that the farmer's getting what they need out of it.
Perfect. So what are the challenges then that you're dealing with? Especially because in some ways I would call this department a reset. It's been reset, and you're leading the charge, and you're only seated in this seat for 6 months.
6 months. I would say that's the hard part. I'm still navigating what everyone does, and I didn't realize the politics that went into it.
There's some fun politics.
That has been really interesting. It's really hard to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
And I don't take that lightly. I am a person that wants to make sure everyone's voice is heard. And sometimes you can't do that, or decisions are made because the offices are appointed positions from the governor's office. So anytime something changes in the governor's office, we're going to see a change.
Right.
And we're just still people trying to do our jobs, and people are mad about politics, where I'm like, I'm not even paying attention to that right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is one of the hardest things in navigating what to do with that and how to compartmentalize that, I guess. What other challenging aspects? The value chain, the movement of food. We're talking about the processing, the transportation of food. I don't think people realize the story of the broccoli head on the shelf and how it got there.
Yeah.
So knowing that, I'll stick with the broccoli. The broccoli might be grown in Arizona, but it might have to be shipped to another state to get processed, cleaned, bagged, and sent back to Arizona to eat, because we don't have enough infrastructure in our states to do that. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just we don't have that. So how are we going to move local food if we don't have that infrastructure?
Well, one of the encouraging things I'll tell you from Dr. George Frisvold, he and his team did an economic study. One of the things I always ask him is, where do you see more gains? He said more value add levels within the food supply chain. Mm-hmm. So, and he says, and Arizona has a lot of potential in that area. So,
that's good.
That's
I'm glad to hear that.
Good to hear that from economists, who, by the way, as an economist, he's actually very fascinating to listen to. And this is kind of off script. Mm-hmm. Since now you've been seated here, I keep making that reference, 6 months, but you've been in Arizona for 9 years, and you also can compare it to Colorado and what you did there, especially with retail direct market. Is there a fair comparison? Can you make a comparison?
I don't think so.
Do you want to make it?
I don't think. In a lot of ways, Colorado felt light years ahead of us here.
Okay.
And I will say the end of the Beginning Farmer program, the goal was to get them on land. And in Boulder County, I think also a lot of Colorado in general, you could lease an acre of land for $1 a year to keep it in agriculture. Wow. So they had protected green space.
Okay.
We don't have that here.
But now that was just in Boulder, Colorado, a city ordinance.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. I'm not going to say it's the state, but I think multiple counties had that.
Okay.
The caveat of that, you had to figure out your water situation. Right. So we built a lot of tanks and all kinds of stuff, but it worked.
Well, they always say labor, water, and then infrastructure issues are always the biggest hurdles for a beginner farmer to jump over.
Yes.
3 of the biggest. I don't know if they're always the biggest, but
yeah.
Interesting.
I think too, there was I'm excited about relaunching Arizona Grown, because Colorado Proud was a huge thing. And working in a grocery store there, it was all over everything. And I think I would love to get us to a point that Arizona Grown is a program that supports farmers and ranchers, maybe even getting funding to help them do value-added products.
Right.
I don't know yet. I don't even know if we could do that, but
Mhm.
I really think it could be a support system that maybe hasn't existed or hasn't existed at least in 10 years. I think it's been dormant for 10 years now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm cheering you on that one because the Arizona Grown program is important.
Yes.
Tell us a story coming from your area that highlights the valuable work that you and your team do. Maybe it's something at the end of the day that said, we did this, we accomplished this. We did something that mattered.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Well, this might not be the happiest story, but with the funding freezes for local food in schools,
Yeah.
and then the local food purchasing, LFPCC was for food bank purchasing.
Okay.
And those funds were frozen as of January 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And many farmers were still operating as usual because they were told to. And I started getting phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was about a month where they had not been paid. Farmers were owed $80,000, $100,000 by the school districts, which is not the school district's fault. It was just the funding was not moving.
Yeah, it was frozen.
And I had a farmer that called me basically hysterical and about they were going to go bankrupt. Like that they're not going to come back from this.
An Arizona farmer.
Mm-hmm. A small farmer. And that, I'm like, I don't want to tear up, but it was a really hard moment where I'm like, what do I do? How do I help you? I can't force the federal government to do anything. So we kind of pulled on the strings of our community web, I guess, and started gathering stories and what the impact was and what is happening on boots on the ground. And then we took that information and got it to the governor's office. We got it to the Ag House Committee. We got it to NASDA, which is the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. And luckily, I don't even know if that did anything, but that funding has started to flow again. Unfortunately, $21 million was cut for the future of that program. It will expand until next year, so I think we have a couple million, I think, to still spend. And I think it was really brave of that farmer to call me and be able to share that I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then to see, okay, maybe something helped with what we did. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Is really to try to navigate, and it's kind of being a social worker in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are my resources? What can we do? Who can I get you to? And I think at the end of the day, that is the point of why I'm in this position.
Amen.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The farmer's still operating?
Yeah, I believe so. I have not heard, so I think that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they've been paid.
Yeah.
I can't confirm that one, but yes.
What do you hope to improve? Maybe having those networks merge, so when those emergencies come up, more of a...
I think a couple of things. We get phone calls a lot on how do you get started? What do I do? What do I do for this? What do I do for that? And I don't think there's like a sole place to go for farmers or beginning farmers to know this is food safety. This is how I get my soil tested. This is how I get my water tested. This is how I get a loan. This is how I do all of those things. So right now we are trying to start building a resource base of all of our partners' resources.
That would be awesome. To
where they can go in and search and figure out, okay, I need a loan. NCRS shows up, things from the Farm Bureau show up. Mm-hmm. Just making sure that our partners are in on this conversation. And then this kind of ties into my next answer too for your last question. But I think, now I'm getting off script here. The educational opportunities. Mm-hmm. That was really trying to share the story of what the department actually does and the boots on the ground and what farmers are facing. And also, how do we get more kids into this? How do we make sure farming is a field for the future?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And especially beginner farmer field for the future, because that's one of the toughest areas.
Yes. Yeah.
Our family, there was 4 kids. I have 3 brothers. Now, we didn't pursue agriculture. 2 of us are working in the industry. Myself with the privilege of working in communications for Arizona Farm Bureau. And my brother is actually in communications too, but for an ag publication. So the 2 of us have gotten to stay in this world. But even for us, because we decided not, Dad set us down when we were young and said, okay, we need to start making those decisions now if this is, but in the same breath, he also discouraged us from pursuing farming.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't pursue it. It would be, even for us, even though we have that legacy and that domain knowledge, for us, even today, if we decided now, I wouldn't do it at my age. but the legacy, the domain knowledge, even for us to get back into it, we'd almost have to treat ourselves like
beginning farmers
and face some of the same issues: the water, the capital, the labor issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mom is. So when my grandparents passed, the farm was divided up to the 3 daughters, and my mom manages a part of it. And it's tough.
That's the other thing. So, but whoever inherits, or if it's divided up, and every time you do that, sometimes it's one of the reasons why a lot of farm families do aggregate, where they do get big, especially if the next generation wants to stay with it. Mm-hmm. We never had to face those challenges, but look at what your mom's dealing
mm-hmm.
with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm sure she's surviving it, but it's not easy.
No, and current situations and politics and all of that, it's just like, I don't know what the future holds.
Right.
And then they're trying to recruit me to come back, and I'm like, no more snow. No more snow.
Maybe in the summer I'll come out
yes.
for a jaunt.
Yes.
And advise and counsel.
Yes.
So remember, you're a social worker.
That's
you got
true.
A little bit of the counsel.
I'll ride in the combine with y'all.
That is so cool, though, that you have that heritage. That's so neat. And I think it gives you the perspective. So we were talking a little bit before we went live, but that all the diversity in agriculture, small farms, mid-sized farms, large farms, organic, conventional, biodynamic, regenerative,
mm-hmm.
It's all needed. It's all important.
Mm-hmm.
It should all be celebrated. We shouldn't be beating up on each other.
No.
And even just the style of farming. So maybe we'll eventually get there.
Yeah, I kind of look at it as your diet. No one should be telling you how to eat food, so why should anyone be telling you how to farm your food?
Good point.
Just as simple as that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Quotable quote, Joel. We're always looking for quotable quotes. So be prepared. You might show up on our
don't tell my dietitian friends.
Okay. So, and I'm giving this same question to all of you.
Mm-hmm.
I've given you the mic. You've got the podium. The average 800 to 900. A couple of you have even hit that 1,000 viewership market.
Gosh.
So that'd be like you'd be in a big auditorium. What are you going to tell the public about what you do, or how critical this is?
I think it might be cliche, but get to know your farmers, get to know your ranchers.
Get to know the farmers, get to know the ranchers.
Yes, okay. I think that there has been, like we've talked about, there's a disconnect of what is happening in agriculture, and we all eat food.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you might not think it impacts you, it does. And I've had people make comments about our water issue from the Midwest, about living in Arizona and growing food. And I'm like, yeah, but do you eat lettuce in the winter? Because that impacts you. My water issue impacts you.
Yeah.
So it's all interconnected. And I think, let me make sure that I'm covering everything I wanted to.
We have time.
We already talked about this, but we're missing the integral pieces with some of the processing and transportation of food. Mm-hmm. And maybe advocating in whatever capacity you can. If you can buy local, support local restaurants, grocery stores, what have you. And then I also think people do not realize the age of the average farmer in Arizona is past retirement age.
Yeah.
There's, I think, 60.8 61.1 in Maricopa County and 60.1 over the whole state.
Yep.
That is scary. And we are not cranking out the farmers. We're not growing the farmers. We need to replace the farmers that we have. And then the other part of that, Maricopa County and Arizona are number 1 for land loss in the entire country.
I know.
And something we do not want to be number 1 in. And I'm not saying development is bad. I'm saying that why isn't agriculture in the conversation when development is happening? Even if there's a garden space within your neighborhood
I know.
that you can grow
They
some food.
barely develop for that little green patch that's
Yeah.
on the corner of the development.
And then you're not allowed to
And
grow
then-
food in that because of
No.
the zoning.
It's like, you get me started on that one. I'm with you, sister.
Yes. So, and again, it's maybe being in those zoning conversations. I didn't realize until I had an issue in my neighborhood of how that even worked. So ensure that if you see those little signs, go to those meetings in your neighborhood and hear what they're building, hear what they're planning, make your voices known, because you do have a right to that. Those are open meetings on purpose, and people don't show up to them.
They don't.
They don't show up to them.
Unless there's some big crisis. It just recently happened in Pinal County. They found out a lot of these people that, the homesteader movement,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been taking off for some time, but a lot of families, at least give me an acre and a half, they were going to change some kind of zone. Don't ask me what the details were, but in Pinal County, people showed up, and I think they backed off.
Yeah.
So you can make a difference, but you've got to show up.
You have to show up. Yeah. And I think that's my statement is please show up. Please show up for agriculture. Please show up if you want to keep eating. If you want your kids to keep eating, because this is beyond you. It's your children. It's your children's children. If we don't have a sustainable way of growing food in a future, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
How are we gonna eat?
How are we gonna eat? And we can't depend on other countries. I mean, to a certain degree, but if we become extremely dependent and we have to import everything, that's what's happened to some developing nations when they don't have their own agriculture infrastructure.
And we saw during COVID how even the infrastructure we do have failed some of us.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it did.
We need both. We need all of it. We need to build all of it.
We do need all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ashley, I have to tell you this. Colleague of mine in the ag world, Tammy Baker, and I started a podcast called Fill Your Plate Now. I want to bring you on just because of some of the things that you cover in this. We might not be so specific with the Arizona Department of Ag, but just that whole food system and how
I would love to.
All those things are important. But I kind of feel like you're kind of my soulmate kid because I'm looking around and you've got a lot of your grandma represented, and we both look like fashion.
Yeah.
Look at my blouse.
I don't know if you can see my pants.
I
We're
mean,
ready for the zoo.
Yeah, we're ready for the zoo. But I would like to invite you to discuss some of these issues a little bit more in some of more extended podcasts.
I would love that.
We're trying to cover it all, and to your point, and Arizona Farm Bureau is very committed to trying to help the consumer connect with farmer and the rancher. So we're doing it through Instagram and lives. These are extended, but I'm kind of pleasantly surprised how many people pay attention to these, and not just my Aggies. I have a gentleman that comes on all the time. He happens to be a member of the California Farm Bureau, but his little handle when he comes on is Hair by Paul. And he's a regular viewer of these, even though he doesn't sometimes get to watch them all the time. But what we're trying to do with these Talk to a Farmer, Talk to a Rancher Fridays is connect the public. And you actually can ask questions. Sometimes we'll get a good number of people that come on and watch them. But I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm proud of the fact that they found you. We've got a farm kid seated in the Arizona Farm Bureau, or the Arizona Department of Ag. That's the second time I almost said that. And I think you guys are going to be transformative in what you can do for the department and for the community.
Thank you. We're trying, and our door is open. If you have feedback, we are here to hear it. Yeah. And just thank you, farmers and ranchers.
All right. Well, thank you, and join us next Friday, same time.